Okay, tonight is the 15th of August, 2011, and this is the third night now. We're talking on the Udana Suttas. Now we come to chapter 5, Sonavagga. The first sutta is 5.1, Raja Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion, King Pasenadi of Kosala had gone to the upper story of the royal palace with Queen Mallika. Then King Pasenadi of Kosala said to Queen Mallika, "Is there anyone, Mallika, dearer to you than yourself?" And she said, "There is no one, great king, dearer to me than myself. But is there anyone, great king, dearer to you than yourself?" And the king replied, "Neither is there anyone, Mallika, dearer to me than myself." Then King Pasenadi of Kosala descended from the palace and went to visit the Lord. On approaching the Lord, he prostrated himself, sat down to one side, and reported this conversation. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "On traversing all directions with the mind, one finds no one anywhere dearer than oneself. Likewise, everyone holds himself most dear. Hence, one who loves himself should not harm another." This sutta actually we found this sutta also, I think, in the Anguttara Nikaya, I think, under the Pasenadi. Is it the Sangyutta Nikaya, under the Kosala Sangyutta, I think. So this sutta tells us that there's no one dearer to ourselves than our own self. This reminds me, many years ago in Penang, one old lady, she asked her daughter to contact us, to go to her house. The husband was dying of old age, and he should have died 3 months ago according to the doctor, but he kept clinging to life. And the wife told us, the wife was very old, the wife told us that when he was still able to talk, the husband said to the wife, he knew that he was going, he asked the wife to go with him. So the wife got frightened. Even though the wife loved the husband, when you are on your deathbed, you ask your wife to go with you, you think she will go? 5.2 Appayukha Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. Then the Venerable Ananda, on emerging from seclusion in the evening, approached the Lord, prostrated himself, sat down to one side and said, "It is wonderful, revered sir. It is marvelous, revered sir. How short-lived was the Lord's mother. 7 days after the Lord was born, the Lord's mother died and was reborn into the Tusita group of Devas." And the Buddha said, "So it is, Ananda. Short-lived are the mothers of Bodhisattvas. 7 days after Bodhisattvas are born, their mothers die and are reborn into the Tusita group of Devas." Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "Whatever beings are born or will be born, they will journey on leaving the body, knowing that all must be abandoned. A skillful one, ardent, should lead the holy life." This sutta, to me, it's a bit doubtful whether it's spoken by the Buddha, because in the Vinaya books, the Buddha says not all Buddhas are the same. Some they teach little Dhamma Vinaya, some teach a lot. The length of their sasana also varies. But here he's saying that all the mothers of the Buddhas to be will die after 7 days. This might be peculiar to our Sakyamuni Buddha, but it's a bit doubtful whether all Buddhas are like that. But the verses are important, that Here the Buddha is saying, if you know that after death you have to leave the body and be reborn, then you should lead the holy life. 5.3 Suppa Buddha Kuti Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Rajagaha in the bamboo wood at the squirrel's feeding place. At that time there was in Rajagaha a leper called Suppa Buddha, a poor, pitiable, wretched person. Now on one occasion the Lord was sitting teaching Dhamma, surrounded by a large gathering. Suppa Buddha, the leper, saw in the distance that a large group of people had collected together, and on seeing it he thought, surely some food is being distributed. Suppose I were to approach that large group of people, I might well get some food there. So Suppa Buddha, the leper, approached that large group of people and saw the Lord sitting and teaching Dhamma, surrounded by that large gathering. On seeing it, he thought, there is no food being distributed here. This is the recluse Gotama teaching Dhamma in the assembly. Suppose I too were to listen to Dhamma. So he sat down to one side, thinking, I too will listen to Dhamma. Then the Lord, comprehending the minds of everyone in that whole gathering with his own mind, considered, who here is capable of understanding Dhamma? Then the Lord saw Suppa Buddha, the leper, sitting amongst the group of people, and on seeing him he thought, this one here is capable of understanding Dhamma. For the sake of Suppa Buddha, the leper, he then gave a progressive talk, that is, a talk on generosity, on virtue or sila, on heaven. He made known the disappointment, degradation, and corruption of sensual pleasures, and the benefit in renouncing them. When the Lord knew that the mind of Suppa Buddha, the leper, was ready, malleable, free from hindrances, elated and purified, he then made known that Dhamma teaching special to the Buddhas, suffering, origination of suffering, cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. And just as a clean cloth without stains would properly take up dye, so in Suppa Buddha, the leper, even as he was sitting there arose the stainless, undefiled vision of the Dhamma, that whatever is subject to origination is subject to cessation. Then Suppa Buddha, the leper, having seen Dhamma, attained to Dhamma, known Dhamma, plunged into Dhamma, crossed over doubt, become free from uncertainty, attained to complete confidence, become independent of others in the teacher's teaching, arose from his seat and approached the Lord. Stop here for a moment. So here, it's basically saying that he attained stream entry, the first path. And in the suttas and the Vinaya, we always see that a person attains stream entry in this way by listening to the Dhamma. He prostrated himself, sat down again to one side and said to the Lord, it is wonderful, revered Sir, it is marvelous, revered Sir. Just as if, revered Sir, one should set upright what is overturned, or should uncover what is concealed, or should point out the path to one who is lost, or should bring an oil lamp into the darkness so that those with eyes could see visible objects. Even so, by various methods, the Lord has explained Dhamma. I, revered Sir, go for refuge to the Lord, to Dhamma, and to the Sangha of monks. May the Lord accept me as a lay follower, gone for refuge from this day forth, for as long as life lasts. Stop here for a moment. You see, when a person takes refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, usually, as is shown here, is the Sangha of monks. Last year we went through a lot of suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya. They also always take refuge with the Sangha of monks. Some people think it's a Sangha of Aryans, but the problem is if you don't know who is an Arya, then how can you take refuge when you don't know who is the Aryan? Whereas here we take refuge with the monks. That's why we notice, for example, in the Samyutta Nikaya, this Anagamin called Chitta and some other Anagamins, they are lay followers who have attained to the third fruit. And then the monks come to their house for alms round, and sometimes they invite the monks into their house to eat. And it doesn't matter what type of monk, whether it's an Aryan monk or a Putujana monk, ordinary monk, This Chitta Anagamin will pay homage to the monk because he is respecting not the person but the Sangha of monks. Thereupon Super Buddha, the leper, after being instructed, roused, inspired and gladdened by the Lord's talk on Dhamma, being pleased and appreciative of what the Lord had said, arose from his seat, prostrated himself before the Lord, and keeping his right side towards him, went away. Now it happened that a cow with a young calf attacked Super Buddha the leper and killed him. Then a number of monks approached the Lord, prostrated themselves, sat down to one side and said, "Revered Sir, the leper Super Buddha, who was instructed, roused, inspired and gladdened by the Lord's talk on Dhamma, has died. What is his destiny? What is his future birth?" And the Buddha said, "Super Buddha, the leper monks, was a wise man. He practiced according to Dhamma and did not trouble me by disputing about Dhamma. Super Buddha, the leper monks, by destroying 3 fetters, is a stream enterer, not liable to fall away, assured, bound for enlightenment." When this was said, a certain monk asked the Lord, "Revered Sir, what was the cause? What was the reason? The Super Buddha, the leper, was a poor, pitiable, wretched person." And the Buddha said, "Formerly, monks, Super Buddha, the leper, was the son of a rich merchant in this very Rajagaha. While being conducted to the pleasure garden, he saw Tagarasiki, the Pacheka Buddha, entering the city for alms food. And on seeing him, he thought, 'Who is that leper wandering about?' And having spat at him and disrespectfully turned his left side towards him, he went away. Through the ripening of just that deed, he suffered in hell for many years, for many hundreds of years, for many thousands of years, for many 100,000s of years. And through the residual result of just that deed, he became a poor, pitiable, wretched person in this very Rajagaha. But on meeting with the Dhamma Vinaya made known by the Tathagata, he acquired faith, virtue, learning, relinquishment, and wisdom. Thus, upon the dissolution of the body after death, he re-arose in a happy realm, in a heavenly world, in companionship with the Devas of the Tavatimsa heaven. There he surpasses the other Devas in beauty and splendor." Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "As a man with good eyesight on a journey would endeavor to avoid any dangerous place, so too a wise man in the world of the living should avoid demeritorious deeds." This Pacheka Buddha, because these Pacheka Buddhas, they dwell alone in the forest, and because he is already a Buddha, enlightened, doesn't care very much for his body. Probably his body was very dirty. Clothes also are shabby and torn here and torn there. So this man is so rich. That's a problem when a person is born into a rich family and spoiled from young. They tend to be very arrogant. It's different if a person, when he was young, the family was poor, and then he worked his way up to the top. Then he has some good qualities. He appreciates people who are poor. But this person, being very young and extremely rich family, looked down on all the poor people. So he thought this Pacheka Buddha looks like a leper. So it's very dangerous to show disrespect or talk bad about a monk or any ascetic who practices the holy life. So like this, just for spitting at the Buddha, he went to hell for a long time. 5.4 Kumaraka Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion, a number of boys in between Savatthi and the Jeta wood were tormenting the fish in a pool. Then the Lord, having put on his robe in the forenoon and taken his bowl and outer cloak, was going to Savatthi to collect alms food. When he saw those boys in between Savatthi and the Jeta wood tormenting the fish, on seeing this, he went up to them and said, "Do you boys fear pain? Do you dislike pain?" And they said, yes, revered sir, we do fear pain, we dislike pain. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: if you fear pain, if you dislike pain, do not do a bad deed openly or in secret. If you have done a bad deed or do one now, you will not escape pain, though you try to flee. 5.5 Uposatha Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the eastern park at Migara's mother's mansion. That means Visakha's mansion. On that occasion the Lord was sitting surrounded by the Sangha of monks, as it was the day of the Uposatha observance. Then when the night was far advanced and the first watch had ended, that means 10 p.m., the Venerable Ananda arose from his seat, arranged his robe over one shoulder, raised his folded hands and said to the Lord, the night is far advanced, revered sir. The first watch has ended and the monks have been sitting for a long time. Revered sir, let the Lord recite the Patimokkha to the monks. When this was said, the Lord remained silent. Stop here for a moment. Up to that time, the Buddha was the one who recited the precepts. The Patimokkha is the list of the precepts. Every 2 weeks, on the 15th day of the lunar month, that means on the full moon night, on the full moon day, day or night, the monks will gather together and recite the Patimokkha, the list of the precepts. And also on the last day of the lunar calendar, that means on the 30th night, or on the 30th day or night, or if there's no 30 days, then it's 29 days, 29th day. So up to that time, the Buddha used to chant the Patimokkha, but you can see from this sutta, after that the Buddha stopped. When the night was still further advanced and the middle watch had ended, that means 2 a.m., a second time the Venerable Ananda arose from his seat and said to the Lord, the night is far advanced, revered sir. The middle watch has ended and the monks have been sitting for a long time. Revered sir, let the Lord recite the Patimokkha to the monks. A second time the Lord remained silent. When the night was further advanced and the last watch had ended, that means 6 a.m., as dawn was approaching and the night was drawing to a close, a third time the Venerable Ananda arose from his seat and said to the Lord, the night is far advanced, revered sir. The last watch has ended. Dawn is approaching and the night is drawing to a close, and the monks have been sitting for a long time. Revered sir, let the Lord recite the Patimokkha to the monks. And the Buddha said, the gathering is not pure, or the assembly is not pure, Ananda. Then the Venerable Mahamoggallana thought, concerning which person has the Lord said, the gathering is not pure, Ananda? And the Venerable Mahamoggallana, comprehending the minds of the whole Sangha of monks with his own mind, saw that person sitting in the midst of the Sangha of monks, immoral, wicked, of impure and suspect behavior, secretive in his acts, no recluse though pretending to be one, not practicing the holy life though pretending to do so, rotten within, lustful and corrupt. On seeing him, he arose from his seat, approached that person and said, get out, friend, you are seen by the Lord. You cannot live in communion with the monks. But that person remained silent. A second time and a third time, the Venerable Mahamoggallana told that person to get up. And a second time and a third time, that person remained silent. Then the Venerable Mahamoggallana took that person by the arm, pulled him outside the gate and bolted it. Then he approached the Lord and said, revered sir, I have ejected that person. The assembly is quite pure. Revered sir, let the Lord recite the Patimokkha to the monks. And the Buddha said, it is strange, Moggallana, it is remarkable, Moggallana, how that stupid person should have waited until he was taken by the arm. Then the Lord addressed the monks, from now on, monks, I shall not participate in the Uposatha observance or recite the Patimokkha. From now on, you yourselves should participate in the Uposatha observance and recite the Patimokkha. It is impossible, monks, it cannot happen that the Tathagata should participate in the Uposatha observance and recite the Patimokkha with a gathering that is not pure. Stop here for a moment. So you see this corrupt monk, even after he was found out and asked to leave, he refused to leave. And after asking him 3 times, Venerable Mahamoggallana thought the soft approach cannot do, must use the hard approach. So threw him out. So you see, during the Buddha's time, they also have a gate. So the gate of the monastery is our boundary. Last time, Sima actually means the boundary of the land. And all the monks inside the boundary of that land is one Sangha. They have to come together to recite the Patimokkha every 2 weeks. Later, they started to shrink the boundary until nowadays they talk about the Sima Hall. But during the Buddha's time, there was no such thing as a Sima Hall. The hall was called a Uposatha Hall. So actually the word Sima Hall is wrong. Sima is boundary. How can the boundary be a hall? Okay, then the Buddha said, monks, there are these 8 wonderful and marvelous qualities of the great ocean, seeing which the Asuras delight in the great ocean. What are the 8? Stop here for a moment. The Asuras originally were in the heaven of the 33 together with the Jaccandhavagga and his devas. Heaven of the 33 is the Tavatimsa heaven. And then the Asuras used to fight with the Jaccandhavagga and his devas. And one day, when the Asuras who liked to drink liquor, when the Asuras were drunk, Jaccandhavagga and his devas caught them and threw them out of the heaven into the great ocean. So they stay in the ocean. This is not our ocean, this is the heaven, the ocean in the heaven. What are the 8? The great ocean, monks, gradually shelves, slopes and inclines, and there is no sudden precipice or no sudden sharp drop. Since the great ocean gradually shelves, slopes and inclines, this is the first wonderful and marvelous quality of the great ocean, seeing which the Asuras delight in the great ocean. Number 2, furthermore, the great ocean is stable and does not exceed the limits of the tide line. This is the second wonderful and marvelous quality of the great ocean. 3, furthermore, the great ocean does not tolerate a dead body, for when there is a dead body in the great ocean, it soon conveys it to the shore and casts it up on dry land. This is the third wonderful and marvelous quality of the great ocean. Number 4, furthermore, whatever great rivers there are, the Ganges, the Yamuna, Achiravati, Sarabu, Mahi, on reaching the great ocean, lose their former names and identities, and are just called the great ocean. This is the fourth wonderful and marvelous quality of the great ocean. Number 5, furthermore, although the rivers of the world flow into the great ocean and showers of rain fall from the sky, no lessening or filling up of the great ocean is evident. This is the fifth wonderful and marvelous quality of the great ocean. Number 6, furthermore, the great ocean has one taste, the taste of salt. This is the sixth wonderful and marvelous quality of the great ocean. Number 7, furthermore, the great ocean contains many precious substances, various precious substances such as these: pearl, crystal, beryl, conch, quartz, coral, silver, gold, ruby, and cat's eye. This is the seventh wonderful and marvelous quality of the great ocean. Number 8, furthermore, the great ocean is the abode of mighty creatures, of such creatures as these: the Timi, Timingala, Timira, Pingala, Asuras, Nagas, and Gandhabas. There exist in the great ocean beings 100 yojanas in size, that means 1,000 kilometers in size, beings 200, 300, 400, and 500 yojanas in size, That means 5,000 kilometers long. This is the 8th wonderful and marvelous quality of the great ocean. These monks are the 8 wonderful and marvelous qualities of the great ocean, seeing which the asuras delight in the great ocean. Similarly, monks, there are 8 wonderful and marvelous qualities in this Dhamma Vinaya, seeing which monks delight in this Dhamma Vinaya. What are the 8? 1. Just as the great ocean gradually shelves, slopes and inclines, and there is no sudden precipice, so also in this Dhamma Vinaya, there is a gradual training, a gradual course, a gradual progression, and there is no sudden penetration to final knowledge. Since in this Dhamma Vinaya there is a gradual training, this is the first wonderful and marvelous quality in this Dhamma Vinaya, seeing which monks delight in this Dhamma Vinaya. I'll stop here for a moment. So progress on the spiritual path is very gradual one. There is no sudden attainment of some insight where you become enlightened or what. Although there is attainment of insight, but it comes after years of practice. Unless in your previous life you already cultivated a lot. Number 2, just as the great ocean is stable and does not exceed the limits of the tide line, so also my disciples do not transgress a training rule laid down by me for discipline for disciples, even for the sake of their lives. This is the second wonderful and marvelous quality in this Dhamma Vinaya. Number 3, just as the great ocean does not tolerate a dead body, but casts it up on dry land, so also whatsoever person is immoral, wicked, of impure and suspect behavior, secretive in his acts, no recluse though pretending to be one, not practicing the holy life though pretending to do so, rotten within, lustful and corrupt, the Sangha does not associate with him, but when it has met together, soon throws him out. Even though he may be sitting in the midst of the Sangha of monks, yet he is far from the Sangha and the Sangha is far from him. This is the third wonderful and marvelous quality in this Dhamma Vinaya. Number 4, just as whatever great rivers there are, on reaching the great ocean lose their former names and identities and are just called the great ocean, so also those of the 4 castes, nobles, Brahmins, merchants and workers, having gone forth from home to the homeless state in the Dhamma Vinaya, made known by the Tathagata, abandon their former names and identities, and are just called recluses, followers, sons of the Sakyan, Sakyaputta. This is the 4th wonderful and marvelous quality in this Dhamma Vinaya. Number 5, just as although the rivers of the world flow into the great ocean and showers of rain fall from the sky, no lessening or filling up of the great ocean is evident. So also, although many monks attain final Nibbana in the Nibbana element with no residue left, no lessening or filling up of the Nibbana element is evident. This is the 5th wonderful and marvelous quality in this Dhamma Vinaya. 6. Just as the great ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so also this Dhamma Vinaya has one taste, the taste of liberation. This is the 6th wonderful and marvelous quality in this Dhamma Vinaya. 7. Just as the great ocean contains many precious substances, various precious substances, so also this Dhamma Vinaya contains many precious things, various precious things such as these: the 4 intense states of mindfulness, the 4 right efforts, the 4 bases of psychic power, the 5 faculties, 5 powers, 7 enlightenment factors, and the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the 7th wonderful and marvelous quality in this Dhamma Vinaya. Number 8, just as the great ocean is the abode of mighty creatures, so also this Dhamma Vinaya is the abode of mighty creatures, such as these: the stream enterer and the one who is on the way to realizing the fruit of stream entry, the one's returner and the one who is on the way to realizing the fruit of one's returning, the non-returner and the one who is on the way to realizing the fruit of non-returning, the Arahant and the one who is on the way to Arahatship. This is the 8th wonderful and marvelous quality in this Dhamma Vinaya. These monks are the 8 wonderful and marvelous qualities in Dhamma Vinaya, seeing which monks delight in this Dhamma Vinaya. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Rain softens what is covered up. It does not sodden what is open. Therefore uncover what is covered, that the rain will not sodden it. When rain falls on something covered, for example, a bag of rice or what, then it becomes sodden, it becomes soft and swells up. So it probably means that if we cover up our offenses, the monks, if the monks cover up their offenses, their defilements, then it swells, it doesn't lessen. The defilements get more. But if they open it up, that means they confess to another monk, then they reduce their defilements. So rain could probably refer to time. Time softens what is covered up. That means your defilements, they are covered up. Okay, 5.6, Sona Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood in Anatta Pindika's monastery. At that time the Venerable Mahakachana was staying among the people of Avanti near Kuraragara on Pavata hill with the lay follower Sona Kotikana as his supporter. Now while the lay follower Sona Kotikana was in seclusion, this train of thought arose in his mind. According to how Master Mahakachana teaches Dhamma, it is not easy for one living at home to practice the holy life, wholly fulfilled, wholly purified and polished like a conch shell. Suppose I were to have my hair and beard shaved off, clothe myself in yellow robes and go forth from home to the homeless state. So the lay follower Sona Kotikana went to the Venerable Mahakachana, prostrated himself, sat down to one side and said, "Just now, revered sir, while in seclusion, I thought, according to how Master Mahakachana teaches Dhamma, it is not easy to practice the holy life at home, and he said, allow me, revered Master Mahakachana, to go forth. When this was said, the Venerable Mahakachana replied to the lay follower Sona Kotikana, Sona, it is hard to lead the holy life with its one meal a day and sleeping alone for the rest of one's life. Come now, Sona, devote yourself to the teaching of the Buddhas while remaining a householder, and try for a limited period to lead the holy life, eating one meal a day and sleeping alone. I stop here for a moment. So this Mahakachana, the Arahant, is telling his chief supporter, instead of becoming a monk, he practice at home. Eat one meal a day and sleep alone. Don't sleep with the wife. See whether can or not. Then later only, you can consider. It's good advice. A lot of people, they haven't even come to the monastery to stay for long periods, and then they say they want to become a monk. Too drastic a change. It must be a gradual change. Then the lay follower Sona Kotikana's idea of going forth subsided. On a second occasion, while the lay follower Sona Kotikana was in seclusion, again the same thought arose. He went to the Venerable Mahakachana and asked to go forth, but again he received the same reply. On the third occasion, however, the Venerable Mahakachana allowed the lay follower Sona Kotikana to go forth. At that time there were few monks in the southern country of Avanti, so only after a lapse of 3 years did the Venerable Mahakachana, with trouble and difficulty, manage to assemble together from here and there a group of 10 monks to form a Sangha of monks and give the higher ordination to the Venerable Sona. Stop here for a moment. So it's just like Malaysia, we have few monks. To get a group of 10 monks of the same tradition to ordain somebody, it's not so easy. So here in this country of Avanti, probably they had less monks. So he had to wait 3 years to manage to get 10 monks to ordain this Sona Kotikana. Then on emerging from seclusion after the rain's retreat, the following thought occurred to the Venerable Sona. I have not seen the Lord face to face. I have only heard that he is like this and like that. If my preceptor would give me permission, I would go to see the Lord, Arahant Sammasambuddha. So the Venerable Sona, on emerging from seclusion in the evening, approached the Venerable Mahakachana, prostrated himself, sat down to one side and said, "Just now, revered sir, while in seclusion, I thought, I have not seen the Lord. If my preceptor would give me permission, I would go to see the Lord, Arahant Sammasambuddha." And then Venerable Mahakachana said, Good, Sona. Go, Sona, to see the Lord, the Arahant Sammasambuddha. Sona, you should see that Lord who inspires trust and confidence, who has calm senses and tranquil mind, who has attained perfect poise and calm, who is controlled, a perfected one, watchful with restrained senses. When you see him, pay homage in my name with your head at the Lord's feet and ask whether he is free from sickness and ailment and is healthy, strong and living in comfort, saying, "My preceptor, revered sir, Mahakachana, pays homage with his head at the Lord's feet and asks whether he is free from sickness and living in comfort." "Very well, revered sir," said the Venerable Sona. And pleased and appreciative of the words of the Venerable Mahakachana, he arose from his seat, prostrated himself before the Venerable Mahakachana, and left, keeping his right side towards him. Having set his lodgings in order and taken his bowl and outer cloak, he departed on tour for Savatthi. Walking on tour by stages, he reached Savatthi, the Jeta wood, and Anathapindika's monastery, and went to the Lord. Having approached the Lord, he prostrated himself, sat down to one side and said to the Lord, "My preceptor, revered sir, the Venerable Mahakachana asked whether the Lord is living in comfort," etc. And the Buddha said, "Are you well, monk? Are you in good health? Are you but little fatigued by the journey coming here and been having no difficulty obtaining alms food?" And he said, "I am well, Lord. I am in good health, Lord. I am not fatigued by the journey coming here, revered sir, and have been having no difficulty obtaining alms food." Then the Lord said to the Venerable Ananda, "Arrange a lodging, Ananda, for this newly arrived monk." Then the Venerable Ananda thought, "When the Lord orders me saying, 'Arrange a lodging, Ananda, for this newly arrived monk,' it is because he wishes to be alone with this monk. The Lord wishes to be alone with the Venerable Sona. So in the dwelling where the Lord was living, he arranged a lodging for the Venerable Sona. Then the Lord, having spent much of the night seated in the open air, washed his feet and entered the dwelling. And the Venerable Sona did likewise. Then towards dawn the Lord got up from his seat and requested the Venerable Sona, "I would like you, monk, to recite Dhamma." "Very well, revered sir," the Venerable Sona replied to the Lord, and he chanted the whole of the 16 sections of the Jaccandhavagga. At the conclusion of the Venerable Sona's chanting, the Lord was highly pleased and said, Good, monk, you have learned the 16 sections of the Jaccandhavagga well. Monk, you have considered and remembered them well. You possess a fine voice, incisive and distinct, that makes the meaning clear." Stop here for a moment. So this monk was asked to recite some Dhamma. He chanted the Jaccandhavagga, I think from the Sutta Nipata, which we will come across later. And the Buddha asked him, "How many years do you have, monk? How many vasa?" In the Pali, the word for years is vasa. So how many vasas do you have, monk? And he said, "I have one vasa, Lord." And the Buddha said, "Why, monk, did you delay so long?" Maybe the Buddha saw he was not so young. Only just become a monk 1 year only. And he said, "For a long time, revered sir, I had seen the danger in sensual pleasures, but the household life, with its many activities and things to be done, held me back. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Having seen the danger in the world, having known the state without clinging, a noble one does not delight in evil. In evil, a pure one finds no delight." 5.7. This story about this Sona Kotikana is in the Vinaya books. It's longer in the Vinaya books. Even the previous one about the 8 qualities of the ocean that the Asuras delight in is also found in some other. It's either Anguttara or Anguttara Nikaya. 5.7 Revata Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion, the Venerable Revata, the doubter, was sitting cross-legged not far from the Lord, holding his body erect and reviewing his own purification by overcoming doubt. The Lord saw the Venerable Revata, the doubter, sitting cross-legged not far away, holding his body erect and reviewing his own purification by overcoming doubt. Then, realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: whatever doubts as to here or beyond, in one's own or another's experience, the meditators abandon all these, the ardent ones leading the holy life. There's no more doubts. This Venerable Revata, the doubter, I think Kanka Revata is Arahant, well known, the chief disciples of the Buddha. If I'm not mistaken, might be Venerable Sariputta's brother. 5.8 Ananda Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Rajagaha in the bamboo wood at the squirrel's feeding place. At that time, on the day of the Uposatha observance, the Venerable Ananda, dressed in the forenoon, took his bowl and outer cloak and entered Rajagaha for alms food. Devadatta saw the Venerable Ananda walking for alms food in Rajagaha, and on seeing him approached the Venerable Ananda and said, "From today, friend Ananda, I shall keep the Uposatha observance and enact the business of the Sangha apart from the Lord and apart from the Sangha of monks." Then the Venerable Ananda, having walked in Rajagaha for alms food and returned after the meal, approached the Lord, prostrated himself, sat down to one side and said to the Lord, "Revered Sir, I had dressed in the forenoon, taking my bowl and outer cloak, and entered Rajagaha for alms food. Devadatta saw me and said, 'From today I shall keep the Uposatha observance,' etc., etc., apart from the Sangha of monks. Today, revered Sir, Devadatta will divide the Sangha. He will keep the Uposatha observance and enact the business of the Sangha separately." Stop here for a moment. This Devadatta, he split the Sangha. This is what is called the schism of the Sangha. He set up his own Sangha, and this is a very serious thing to do, something that can bring one definitely to hell when he dies. So because of his ego, he wanted to lead the Sangha. The Buddha did not allow him to lead the Sangha. He still insists on leading his own Sangha. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "For the good to do what is good is easy. For the bad to do what is good is difficult. For the bad to do what is bad is easy. For the noble to do what is bad is difficult." So the Buddha said, this Devadatta, he has not a spot of goodness in him. So that's why the Buddha said he will never see the Buddha again after trying to kill the Buddha and all that. 5.9 Saddha Yamana Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was journeying among the people of Kosala together with a large Sangha of monks. On that occasion a number of youths passed by in a mocking manner not far from the Lord. That means they probably passed some nasty remarks about the Buddha and the monks. The Lord saw those youths passing by in a mocking manner. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "The Dalits who appear as wise men recite with speech alone as their range. As much as they wish, they stretch their mouths. What leads them on, they do not know." 5.10 Chula Pantaka Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Venerable Chula Pantaka was sitting cross-legged not far from the Lord, holding his body erect, having set up mindfulness before him. The Lord saw the Venerable Chula Pantaka sitting cross-legged not far away, holding his body erect, having set up mindfulness before him. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "With body steady and mind steady, whether standing, sitting or lying down, a monk making this mindfulness firm shall obtain successive distinctions. On obtaining distinctions in succession, he goes beyond sight of the king of death. That means he does not die anymore because he has no more self. Just the body dies. Now we come, is there anything to discuss? Otherwise I want to go into chapter 6. Okay, we go into chapter 6 first. Jaccandhavagga 6.1 Ayu Sankara Vosa Jana Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Vesali in the great wood in the hall of the gable house. Then in the forenoon the Lord, having put on his robe and taken his bowl and outer cloak, entered Vesali for alms food. Having walked in Vesali for alms food and returned after the meal, he addressed the Venerable Ananda. Take a mat, Ananda. I will go to the Chapala shrine for the midday period. Very well, revered sir, the Venerable Ananda replied. And taking a mat, he followed close behind the Lord. Then the Lord approached the Chapala shrine and on reaching it, sat down on a prepared seat. Sitting there, the Lord addressed the Venerable Ananda. Pleasant Ananda is Vesali. Pleasant is the Udana shrine, the Gotama shrine, the Satamba shrine, the Bahuputta shrine, the Sarandada shrine, and the Chapala shrine. When anyone, Ananda, has developed and cultivated the 4 bases of psychic power, made them the vehicle, made them the basis, established, consolidated, and properly practiced them, he could, if he so wishes, live out the aeon, or what remains of the aeon. Aeon is the world cycle, the Pali is Kappa. The Tathagata Ananda has developed and cultivated the 4 bases of psychic power and properly practiced them. And if he so wishes, the Tathagata could live out the aeon or what remains of the aeon. But even though such a broad hint was made by the Lord, such an evident indication, the Venerable Ananda was unable to comprehend it, and he did not entreat the Lord, saying, Revered Sir, let the Lord live out the aeon, let the Sugata live out the aeon, for the welfare of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the good welfare and happiness of devas and men. As his mind was possessed by Mara. We recall this sutta, this incident we already read in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. A second time and a third time the Lord addressed the Venerable Ananda, saying, Pleasant Ananda is Vesali, etc. And the Tathagata could live out the aeon or what remains of the aeon. But a second and a third time the Venerable Ananda was unable to comprehend it, as his mind was possessed by Mara. Then the Lord addressed the Venerable Ananda, Go, Ananda, do now what you think it is time to do. Very well, revered sir, the Venerable Ananda replied. And rising from his seat, he prostrated himself before the Lord. And keeping his right side towards him, he went and sat down at the foot of a certain tree not far away. Then not long after the departure of the Venerable Ananda, Mara the evil one approached the Lord. Standing to one side, Mara the evil one said to the Lord, Let the Lord, revered sir, now attain final Nibbana. Let the Sugata attain final Nibbana. It is now time, revered sir, for the Lord's final Nibbana. These words, revered sir, were spoken by the Lord. I will not attain final Nibbana, evil one, until my monk disciples are wise, disciplined, confident, attain to security from bondage, learned, experts in Dhamma, practicing according to Dhamma, practicing the proper way, living by following Dhamma. Nor until after learning it from their own teachers, they will be able to announce, teach, declare, establish, reveal, expound, and explain it to others. Nor until refuting with Dhamma the arisen theories of others, they will be able to teach Dhamma that is convincing. But now, revered sir, the Lord's monk disciples are wise, etc., able to teach Dhamma that is convincing. Let the Lord, revered sir, now attain final Nibbana. Let the Sugata attain final Nibbana. It is now time, revered sir, for the Lord's final Nibbana. These words, revered sir, were spoken by the Lord. I will not attain final Nibbana, evil one, until my non-disciples are wise, etc., able to teach Dhamma that is convincing. I will not attain final Nibbana until the men lay followers, the women lay followers, who are my disciples are wise, etc., able to teach Dhamma that is convincing. But now, revered Sir, the Lord's non-disciples, men and women lay followers, who are the Lord's disciples, are wise, etc., able to teach Dhamma that is convincing. Let the Lord now attain final Nibbana. Let the Sugata attain final Nibbana. It is now time, revered Sir, for the Lord's final Nibbana. These words were spoken by the Lord. I will not attain final Nibbana, evil one, until this holy life of mine has become successful and prosperous, widely spread and disseminated among many, until it is well expounded among devas and men. But now, revered Sir, the Lord's holy life is successful and prosperous, widely spread and disseminated among many. It is well expounded among devas and men. It is now time, revered Sir, for the Lord's final Nibbana. When this had been said, the Lord addressed Mara, the evil one. You may rest content, evil one. You will not be long before the Tathagata's final Nibbana. 3 months from now, the Tathagata will attain final Nibbana. It was then at the Chapala shrine that the Lord, mindful and clearly comprehending, relinquished the life volition. And when the Lord had relinquished the life volition, a great earthquake occurred, and a fearful hair-raising peal of thunder rent the air. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on this occasion this inspired utterance. The sage relinquished the existence volition, which originates the immeasurable and immeasurable. Inwardly happy and composed, he sundered self-existence like a coat of mail. That's the end of the sutta here. So the Buddha hinted that if he wanted to, he could live for a world cycle. But the later books like the commentary, they find it impossible. How can a human being live for a world cycle? So they change it to, instead of world cycle, they said it's just a life cycle, meaning that during the Buddha's time, lifespans were generally about 100 years. So the Buddha was 80 years old when he passed on. If the Buddha wanted to, could live for another 20 years. So instead of kappa, they changed it to ayu kappa. But in actual fact, the Pali is kappa, world cycle. So here, when the Buddha decided to enter Nibbana, he relinquished the life volition. Ayu Sankara. Sankara means volition. So life volition is basically the will to live. Only when you let go of the will to live, then you will pass on. So the sage relinquished the existence volition, the will to live, which originates the measurable and immeasurable. Measurable is supposed to be the sense sphere and the form sphere, and the immeasurable, the formless. Okay, 6.2, Jatila Sutta. Jatila matted hair ascetics. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the eastern park in Megara's mother's mansion. On that occasion the Lord had emerged from seclusion in the evening and was sitting outside the gate. Then King Parsanadi of Kosala approached the Lord, prostrated himself and sat down to one side. At that moment, not far from the Lord, there passed by 7 Jatila ascetics, 7 Nigantas or Jains, 7 naked ascetics, 7 single garment ascetics, and 7 wanderers, all with hairy bodies and long nails, and carrying their requisites in a bundle on a shoulder pole. King Parsanadi of Kosala saw these groups of 7 passing by not far from the Lord. On seeing them, he arose from his seat, arranged his robe over one shoulder, knelt down with his right knee on the ground, and raising his folded hands towards those groups of 7, he announced his name 3 times thus: Revered Sirs, I am King Parsanadi of Kosala. Then soon after the departure of those groups of 7, King Parsanadi of Kosala approached the Lord again, prostrated himself, sat down to one side, and said to the Lord, Revered Sir, Could any one of these be among those in the world who are Arahants or who have entered the path to Arahantship? Stop here for a moment. When this sutta was spoken, this King Pasenadi had just come to have faith in the Buddha and did not know enough Dhamma to tell who is an Arahant, who is not an Arahant. So our ignorance, he paid respect to all those external ascetics. Just like a lot of Chinese who don't really know the Dhamma. When you pass any Taoist temple, any type of statue, out of fear you also pay respect. Yes or not? A lot of Chinese and that. And then the Buddha said, "Great king, being a layman enjoying the pleasures of the senses, living at home with the encumbrance of children, making use of sandalwood from Kasi, wearing garlands, scents and unguents, and handling gold and silver," meaning money. It is difficult for you to know whether or not these are Arahants or whether they have entered the path to Arahantship. It is by living with a person that his virtue is to be known, great king, and then only after a long time, not after a short period, and only by considering it, not without consideration, and only by one who is wise, not by a fool. Similarly, it is by associating with a people, with a person, that his purity is to be known. It is in adversity that a person's fortitude is to be known. It is by discussion with a person that his wisdom is to be known, great king, and then only after a long time, not after a short period, and only by considering it, not without consideration, and only by one who is wise, not by a fool. Stop here for a moment. So here basically the Buddha says, to know a person really well, to know a person's heart, it takes a long time. A lot of people, they know somebody for a short time and they make conclusions that is not accurate. And not only that, the person who is making judgments, he has to be very sharp-witted, very able to notice, and a very intelligent person. The Buddha said, a fool cannot judge a wise man, but a wise man can judge a fool. And then the king said, "It is wonderful, revered sir, it is marvelous, revered sir, how well this has been said by the Lord. These, revered sir, are my men in disguise, for informers who are returning after spying on the country. First, information is gathered by them, and afterwards I will make them disclose it. Now, revered sir, when they have washed off the dust and mud, are well bathed and perfumed, and have trimmed their hair and beards and dressed themselves in white garments, they will go about given to and provided with the 5 kinds of sensual pleasure." Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "One should not strive everywhere. One should not be another's man. One should not live depending on another. One should not make a business of Dhamma." Stop it for a moment. So the king, he agreed with the Buddha that it's hard to judge a person. Then he referred to his spies. The king has a lot of spies, informers. They disguise themselves and go and gather information for the king. And after they come back and tell all the secrets to the king, and the king provides them with the 5 kinds of sensual pleasure to enjoy. 6.3 Pachavekana Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Lord was sitting, reviewing the various unwholesome states that had been abandoned by him, and the various wholesome states brought to completion through development. Then, on realizing that the various unwholesome states had been abandoned by him, and the various wholesome states had been brought to completion through development, bhavana, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: "What formerly was, later was not. What formerly was not, later was. It was not and will not be, and does not now exist." This is a famous phrase, but different people translate it differently. What formerly was not, that means what's in the former lives, was not, later was. What formerly was, later was not. What formerly was probably is the self. Formerly the Buddha had a self, later he had no more self. And what formerly was not, later was probably he didn't have the wisdom before or enlightenment before, and then later he had. It was not and will not be. There was no self before, and there will be no self and in the future, and even now does not exist. But there are many different ways of interpretation. Different people interpret differently. 6.4. Patama Jnana Titiya Sutta. Or is it Nana Titiya Sutta? I think Nana Titiya Patama, the first Nana Titiya Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood in Anathapindika's monastery. At that time there were a number of recluses and Brahmins, wanderers of various sects, living around Savatthi. And they were of various views, of various beliefs, of various opinions, and they relied on their support on their various views. There were some recluses and Brahmins who asserted and held this view: the world is eternal, only this is true, any other view is false. There were some recluses and Brahmins who asserted the world is not eternal, only this is true, any other view is false. And then the world is finite, the world is infinite, the life principle and the body are the same, the life principle and the body are different. The Tathagata exists beyond death. The Tathagata does not exist beyond death. The Tathagata both exists and does not exist beyond death. The Tathagata neither exists nor does not exist beyond death. Only this is true, any other view is false. And they lived quarrelsome, disputatious and wrangling, wounding each other with verbal darts, saying, Dhamma is like this, Dhamma is not like that, Dhamma is not like this, Dhamma is like that. Then a number of monks, having put on their robes in the forenoon and taken their bows and outer cloaks, entered Savatthi for alms food. Having walked in Savatthi for alms food and returned after the meal, they approached the Lord, prostrated themselves, sat down to one side and said to the Lord, At present, revered Sir, there are a number of recluses and Brahmins, wanderers of various sects, living around Savatthi, and they are of various views, etc., saying this and saying that. And the Buddha said, the wanderers of other sects, monks, are blind, unseeing. They do not know what is beneficial. They do not know what is harmful. They do not know what is Dhamma. They do not know what is not Dhamma. Not knowing what is beneficial and what is harmful, not knowing what is Dhamma and what is not Dhamma, they are quarrelsome, disputing, etc., saying Dhamma is like this, Dhamma is like that. Formerly, monks, there was a certain king in this very Savatthi, and that king addressed a man, Come now, my good man, bring together all those persons in Savatthi who have been blind from birth. Yes, Your Majesty, that man replied, and after detaining all the blind people in Savatthi, he approached the king and said, All the blind people in Savatthi have been brought together, Your Majesty. And the king said, Now, my man, show the blind people an elephant. Very well, Your Majesty, the man replied to the king, and he presented an elephant to the blind people, saying, This blind people is an elephant. To some of the blind people he presented the head of the elephant, saying, This is an elephant. To some he presented an ear of the elephant, saying, This is an elephant. To some he presented a tusk, the trunk, the body, the foot, the hindquarters, the tail, the tuft at the end of the tail, saying, This is an elephant. Then monks, the man, having shown the elephant to the blind people, went to the king and said, The blind people have been shown the elephant, Your Majesty. Do now what you think is suitable. Then the king approached those blind people and said, Have you been shown the elephant? And they said, Yes, Your Majesty, we have been shown the elephant. And the king said, Tell me, blind people, what is an elephant like? Those blind people who had been shown the head of the elephant replied, An elephant, Your Majesty, is just like a water jar. Those blind people who had been shown the ear of the elephant replied, An elephant, Your Majesty, is just like a winnowing basket. Those blind people who had been shown the tusks of the elephant replied, "An elephant, your majesty, is just like a plowshare." Those blind people who had been shown the trunk replied, "An elephant, your majesty, is just like a plow pole." Those blind people who had been shown the body replied, "An elephant, your majesty, is just like a storeroom." Those blind people who had been shown the foot replied, "An elephant, your majesty, is just like a post." Those blind people who had been shown the hindquarters replied, "An elephant, your majesty, is just like a mortar." Those blind people who had been shown the tail replied, "An elephant, your majesty, is just like a pestle." Those blind people who had been shown the tuft at the end of the tail replied, "An elephant, your majesty, is just like a broom." Saying an elephant is like this, an elephant is not like that, an elephant is not like this, an elephant is like that, they fought each other with their fists, and the king was delighted with the spectacle. Even so, monks are those wanderers of various sects, blind, unseeing, saying Dhamma is like this, Dhamma is like that. Then, on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Some recluses and Brahmins, so-called, are deeply attached to their own views. People who see only one side of things, engage in quarrels and disputes. This reminds me, just like some people, they study one sutta and then they think they know everything about that topic. So just like these blind people, to really understand, you have to see it from different angles. The more angles you see it, the more you understand. Similarly, for example, if you want to understand Satipatthana, you cannot understand just from the Satipatthana Sutta. You got to study all the suttas dealing with Satipatthana, and most of it are in the Samyutta Nikaya. So the more suttas you read, then you understand the topic from more angles. Just like this blind man. Don't be narrow-minded. You just study one sutta and think you know everything. The more suttas, the more important it is. That's why I always encourage people to study the suttas. But some people, they study Pali. And then when they study Pali, and then they go and dissect one sutta into all the details, and they think they understand the sutta. But to me, it's better if you study a lot of suttas instead of concentrating on one or two suttas and use your knowledge of Pali to split hairs. I find some monks, they do that. 6.5 Duttiya Nanatitya Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. At that time there were a number of recluses and Brahmins, wanderers of various sects, living around Savatthi. And they were of various views, of various beliefs, of various opinions, and they relied for support on their various views. There were some recluses and Brahmins who asserted and held this view. The self and the world are eternal, only this is true. Any other view is false. There were some who asserted the self and the world are not eternal. The self and the world are both eternal, not eternal. The self and the world are neither eternal nor not eternal, etc., etc. And they lived quarrelsome, disputatious and wrangling, wounding each other with verbal darts, saying, Dhamma is like this, Dhamma is not like that, Dhamma is not like this, Dhamma is like that. Then a number of monks, having put on their robes in the forenoon, and taken their bowls and outer cloaks, entered Savatthi for alms food. Having walked in Savatthi for alms food and returned after the meal, they approached the Lord, prostrated themselves, sat down to one side, and said to the Lord, At present, revered Sir, there are a number of recluses and Brahmins, wanderers of various sects, living around Savatthi, and they are of various views, saying Dhamma is like this, Dhamma is like that. And the Buddha said, the wanderers of other sects, monks, are blind, unseeing. They do not know what is beneficial. They do not know what is harmful. They do not know what is Dhamma. They do not know what is not Dhamma. Not knowing what is beneficial and what is harmful, not knowing what is Dhamma and what is not Dhamma, they are quarrelsome, saying Dhamma is like this, Dhamma is like that. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Some recluses and Brahmins, so-called, are deeply attached to their own views. Not finding a firm foothold, they sing in the middle of the stream. 6.6 Tatya Nana Titya Sutta. Thus have I heard, same as before, the recluses and Brahmins of various sects live quarrelsome, disputatious and wrangling, wounding each other with verbal darts, saying Dhamma is like this, Dhamma is not like that, etc. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. This humankind is attached to self-production or holds to production by another. Those who have not understood this have not seen it as a dart, but one who sees this as it is, having drawn out the dart, does not think I am the agent, nor does he think another is the agent. This humankind is possessed by conceit, fettered by conceit, bound by conceit, speaking vindictively because of their views. They do not go beyond samsara, the round of rebirths. So this first line, this humankind is attached to self-production or holds to production by another. Probably means that self-production means the world arose by itself. Some people say the world arose by chance. And then production by another. Some people say the world arose because it was created by a creator, etc. 6.7 Subhuti Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion the Venerable Subhuti was sitting cross-legged not far from the Lord, holding his body erect, having attained a non-discursive concentration. The Lord saw the Venerable Subhuti sitting cross-legged not far away, holding his body erect, having attained a non-discursive concentration. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: in whom discursive thoughts have been burnt up, entirely cut off within himself, having overcome that tie, perceiving the formless, surmounting the four bonds, he never comes back. 6.8 Gannika Sutta. Thus have I heard. At one time the Lord was staying near Rajagaha in the bamboo wood at the squirrel's feeding place. At that time there were two factions enamored of and infatuated with a certain courtesan. Stop here a moment. This courtesan is like a high-class geisha, high-class prostitute. So there were two groups of people fighting over this beautiful high-class prostitute. They were quarrelsome, disputatious and wrangling, and attacked each other with their fists, with clods of earth, with staves and with weapons, so that they went to their death or suffered near to death. Then a number of monks, having put on their robes in the forenoon and taken their bows and outer cloaks, entered Rajagaha for alms food. Having walked in Rajagaha for alms food and returned after the meal, they approached the Lord, prostrated themselves, sat down to one side and said to the Lord, "At present, revered Sir, there are two factions enamored of and infatuated with a certain courtesan, etc." Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance: what has been attained and what is still to be attained, both these are littered with dust for a frail person who trains after one with wrong view. Those who hold training as the essence, or who hold virtue and vow or precepts, pure livelihood, celibacy and service as the essence, this is one extreme. And those with such theories and views, such as there is no fault in sensual desires, this is the second extreme. Both these extremes cause the cemeteries to grow, and the cemeteries cause wrong views to grow. By not penetrating these two extremes, some hold back and some go too far. But for those who penetrated them and were no more found among them, and who do not conceive on this account, there is no ground for the manifestation of them. So here basically the Buddha is saying there are two extremes. One is asceticism, those who practice self-austerity, self-torment, and the other is those who delight in sensual pleasures. And these two wrong views cause the geometries to grow. 6.9 Upatti Sutta. Thus have I heard, at one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. On that occasion, on a very dark night, the Lord was sitting in the open air and oil lamps were burning. Now at that time, many flying insects were coming to misfortune and destruction by falling into those oil lamps. The Lord saw those flying insects coming to misfortune and destruction by flying to those oil lamps. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. Rushing headlong and missing the essence, they bring about renewed bondage, like insects falling into the flame. Some are intent only on what is seen and heard. So people who take delight in what is seen and heard, worldly things, they rush headlong to enjoy. Then they fall into the flame of samsara, round of rebirths. 6.10 Tathagata Upada Sutta. Thus have I heard, at one time the Lord was staying near Savatthi in the Jeta wood at Anathapindika's monastery. Then the Venerable Ananda approached the Lord, prostrated himself, sat down to one side and said, Revered Sir, as long as the Tathagatas do not appear in the world, Arahants, Sammasambuddhas, so long are wanderers of other sects respected, revered, honored, venerated and given homage, and they obtain the requisites of robes, arms, food, lodgings and medicines. But when Tathagatas appear in the world, Arahants, Sammasambuddhas, then the wanderers of other sects are not respected, revered, honored, venerated and given homage, and they do not obtain the requisites of robes, arms, food, lodgings and medicines. Now, revered Sir, only the Lord is respected, revered, honored, venerated and given homage, and also the Sangha of monks. And the Buddha said, so it is, Ananda, as long as the Tathagatas do not appear in the world, so long are wanderers of other sects respected. Now only the Tathagata is respected, and also the Sangha of monks. Then on realizing its significance, the Lord uttered on that occasion this inspired utterance. The glowworm shines as long as the sun has not risen. But when that illuminant arises, the glowworm's light is quenched and shines no more. Even so, the wanderers shine only as long as fully awakened ones do not appear in the world. These thinkers are not purified, nor yet their disciples, for those of perverse views are not released from suffering. Let's stop here. Anything to discuss? Where did you read that?
I read it from some
No such thing. This thing about being ordained 7 times is found in the Mahayana. In the Theravada, there is no limit to the number of times you can ordain, as long as the preceptor is willing to ordain that person. There are these things about 7 times. It was from the external sect ascetics, even during the Buddha's time, so it crept into Mahayana Buddhism. For example, not only this ordaining 7 times, also during the Buddha's time, these external sect ascetics, when they go and beg for their food, they only go to 7 houses, and if they cannot get after 7 houses, they stop begging for their food. And this is also mentioned in the Mahayana books. So a lot of things in the Mahayana are later, because you know very well Mahayana started 500 years after the Buddha's passing away. So what was prevalent during that period, 500 years after the Buddha's passing away, a lot of things they absorbed from the external ascetics, and then they crept into Mahayana Buddhism and they call it Buddhism. This is a Thai tradition. Thai tradition, when you drink or you eat, is impolite to stand. You either have to sit or you have to squat. But it's not in the Vinaya, just like it's not in the Vinaya that when a woman gives something to a monk, you must put a piece of cloth to receive it. You can receive it directly. But in the Thai tradition, you have to put a piece of cloth to receive it. So when I'm in Thailand, I have to follow, do as the Romans do. When I'm in Malaysia, I do as Malaysians do. Because there are those monks who are very attached to the Thai tradition, they are unhappy with me.
Okay. About Sutta 5.5, the Uposatha day, why the Buddha cannot recite the Patimokkha from in a gathering that is impure?
Oh, because the monk's head was split into 7 pieces.
Is that the monk is impure? Does it mean that the monk have offense the 4 the serious offenses?
It is not mentioned that basically the monk does not keep the precepts, and he has no interest to keep the precepts, and he wears the robe just to be respected and have a place to sleep, have free food, and all this. Just like some people wear the robe for that purpose. Otherwise, if they live the life of a layman, they have to work very hard. A lot of people who wear the robe, they forget that when you wear the robe and you receive all these offerings, it's like you are using a credit card. You have to pay for it sometime or other. So if you don't practice well and you take all these offerings and all these vows and all that, next time you have to pay. That's why it is mentioned that the Arahants or maybe also the Aryans, only they deserve the offerings that they receive.
About Sutta 6.7, the last sentence of the verse, surmounting the 4 bonds. What is the 4 bonds? What are the 4 bonds?
Oh, I can't tell you offhand. I have to check up. Yeah, it should be in the notes behind. I think we went through the 4 bonds, the 4 floods, the 4 all these things. The other thing. Now we can end here.